Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for our 3-day Metals and Mining Conference. Our next presentation of the day is from CoTec. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for a one-on-one meeting by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Julian Treger, Chief Executive Officer, and Eugene Herkun, VP Finance of CoTec, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol CTHCF and on the TSXV under the symbol CTH. Welcome back, Julian and Eugene.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Greg. And thank you, those viewing, for taking the time to hear the story of CoTec, which we're very excited about. Before I talk about the company itself, perhaps I'll just give you some background on myself and talk about how CoTec came to be, and then we can talk about what it is today. So my background is that I've been investing in the commodity space with metals and mining for the last 20 years, with some success. I found a coal company in Western Canada, which was going bankrupt, and took a stake in that. Fixed it up. It was a bit of a roller coaster, but we ended up selling it in an auction for over $3 billion at the top of the market to an American company. And then after that, I, with some partners, found a copper business in Chile, which had been owned by Anglo-American. We bought that for $300 million with backing from a finance company in New York who took a royalty as well. Again, it was a bit of a roller coaster. We started some new mines. There were difficult moments, but we came through, and ultimately we merged it with a Canadian company called Capstone at the time for a valuation of something like $2 billion, but since then, the stock's gone up quite a lot, so that stake would now be worth $3 or $4 billion. And along the way, I also became the CEO of a royalty company in London called Anglo-Pacific, now called Ecora, where I joined in 2013. It had $5 million of income, and when I left in 21, the income was up to around $70–80 million. I decided to leave Ecora or Anglo-Pacific when the liquidity event happened for Mantos Copper. And I then was thinking what I should do next. And in my career as an investor and manager and change agent, I had learned that the only way to make real money is to buy things cheaply. And so I was very attracted to the story of waste and recycling and turning what other people consider to be a liability into an asset, because waste in this space contains lots of very valuable materials. And the other thing that struck me was that this sector is one of the few, if not the only, part of the economy that hasn't really been disrupted by technology yet. I mean, we all know how retailing, how travel, how banking, how real estate has been changed forever. But in the metals and mining space, generally, things are done much as they have been done for the last 100 years. There hasn't been much change. The big mining companies have spent billions of dollars on research and development, but they haven't, in fact, incorporated them in a way which fundamentally changes the way in which things are done. So I put those two thoughts together for CoTec, which really stands for finding technologies to unlock commodity value in a unique fashion, in a disruptive fashion. And the long-term aim of CoTec is no less than trying to reinvent the way in which this sector operates and is perceived in a much more attractive and in fact, more profitable model. As I'll talk to you later, fortuitously, although we started CoTec 4 years ago, Bram Jonker, the finance director, controlled a shell vehicle in Canada which had $90 million of tax losses, and so we decided to use that as a vehicle. It was an idea for a time which is today, because it is so appropriate for the current situation of the West and the US in particular, which is where we are focusing a lot of our businesses. So, it's a very interesting business, which we are very excited about, and we think it has enormous potential. So where are we today after 4 years? We've basically started by assembling a world-class board, which I'll talk about in due course as well. And on that board is the ex-CEO of Rio Tinto, who's an eminent figure in the natural resources space. And he introduced us to the guy who had previously run Rio Tinto's venture business. And with that gentleman, John McGaugh, we started by trying to scour the world for interesting technologies that could be really change agents in the sector. We looked at 400 technologies, and we've ended up investing in 6 of those. And those 6 technologies answer some of the historic questions that bedeviled the mining sector, which are things like, how do you deal with very fine material? How do you deal with very hard rocks? And how do you deal with very low-grade materials? And those problems, because they couldn't be tackled historically, have proven to be what we find in lots of the waste that's been left behind by the mines which were developed and mined over the past 100 years. So we've ended up investing in new process technologies, which we think are like category killers, which can really change the way in which we can look at the waste that's been left behind and extract the valuable metallic content from them. And when we started CoTec and we started investing in technologies, people really didn't understand what we were doing. They thought we were like a VC incubator fund with technologies. Now I think it's becoming clearer what the strategy and how it is and how it works, because the technologies are the means to the end. The end is in the next decade to acquire 20 to 30 assets, which we can apply those technologies to, where those technologies are the key to unlocking the metallic content of those assets. And only with those technologies will we be able to monetize what's contained within those assets. So we now have the 6 technologies, as well as 3 assets, one of which I'll talk to you in further detail about, our very exciting magnet recycling business, is effectively 3 assets which we're developing. So if you take that in a broken down way, we will effectively have 5 assets already. So we're well on the way to building the company which we envisaged when we started out. The investment portfolio and the technologies are applicable to rare earth magnets, which is a very timely thing these days, to iron ore, to copper, and also actually to metallic waste, so things like tungsten, manganese, vanadium. And so we expect to develop assets in all of those metals, and ultimately to have scaled a CoTec iron ore business, a CoTec copper business, and a CoTec metallics business, which we can one day separately spin off to our shareholders. So we are very committed to the strategy. Not only are we dedicating a huge amount of our lives to it, which is the most valuable thing. But we're also putting our money where our mouths are. So my interests own, close to 45% of the company. Other management and insiders own another 20%. We've been funding the business. We believe that there is an enormous opportunity to create exceptional capital gains from this strategy, and we intend to, own as much as we can of the business, and not to issue trillions of shares and degrade the value of each share. We want each share to grow in value, and we can see how we could get one day to $10 a share or even better. We do trade at a big discount to net asset value, but the shares have been growing up recently, and at the same time we are adding to our net asset value, and we would expect in the next month or so to give an updated sum of the parts, which continues to show that we're trading at a very large discount, more like 80-85% the true value when updated than the 70% discount. So there are lots and lots of catalysts. We are working on, as we'll talk about, the individual technologies and assets we own. We are hard at work to unlock their value. And we're very excited about this strategy because it's a timely strategy for the West and for the US. We are developing CoTec at a time when the global supply chain has broken down. There's a global fight for strategic materials. The Chinese are advanced. The US is trying to play catch up. Europe has got its own agenda. And by focusing on waste, which is what we are doing, we're able to unlock the value of the commodities much more quickly than historical mining would do. So historically, mining could take up to, in some instances, 30 years from discovery and exploration to actual production. In our case, because we are using existing resources, infrastructure, it's brownfield restarts of things which had previously been licensed, we can move much more quickly. So we expect to be in production, in 3 to 5 years, which is much more helpful to the West in terms of its desires to get a secure supply chain. And CoTec is an important part of that story, and we're getting tremendous traction, both in Washington, but also in other countries who are very interested in how they can use their existing waste to produce the materials that they require. So turning now in more detail to the portfolio of technologies, the one which is most exciting and timely is the magneto technology, which we operate in the US under the Hypermag US label. So that's a technology which was developed over 15 years at a cost of over $100 million. And it's a really unique patented technology which can take used magnets and in a very simple process, cut them out of old e-waste before it's shredded, and then put the magnets into a centrifuge with hydrogen, and we can take out the magnet mix, and we can use that magnet mix to make the same sort of magnets. That's a technology which is already operated in the UK. They've produced several tons of magnets, several thousand magnets. There's a bigger facility opening in the UK shortly, and another one in Germany. And one of our most interesting assets is the fact that we directly and indirectly own 60% of that business, which is going to be developed in the US. We also own in this iron ore space a technology called binding solutions, which can make pellets in a very green way, using much less energy, which is very exciting. We own Sabre, which is a very, again, disruptive technology for low-grade copper leaching, which is developing very well. Wavecracker uses microwaves to crack open hard rocks. Salter uses gravity separation to separate, for instance, iron ore from waste, but also tungsten from waste or manganese from waste. Wherever there's a big weight disparity between the materials, it can concentrate that. And then Magine, which is one of our assets, also has a proprietary technology which can concentrate hematite and goethite ore, which is also very exciting. And what's interesting about all these technologies is that they have a commonality in that they are modular. They use much less heat and water. They're very flexible, and they cost much less. So we see in this new wave of technologies a way in which mining can be changed fundamentally going forward. So that's the technology portfolio. Just talking about the magnet business, that is something very exciting. I mean, in a way, if we were starting CoTec again, we should call it CoTec Magnet Rare Earths, whatever. But this is a business that's contained within CoTec. I think in due course, we will look at separating it from CoTec and showing the world what we have developed. But it's super interesting. The US particularly is challenged by China in terms of its magnet supply, and using the existing circulation of magnets in the US economy, we will be able to reuse and remake the magnets that the economy needs. So the way in which we're planning to do so is to build a series of hubs in the US, starting with one in Texas, which should be in production by the middle of 2027. Each hub costs around $140 million and can produce around 750 to 1,000 tons of magnets and a similar amount of anode material, which can be used to make magnets by other parties. The economics of each hub is that they're worth around $600 million. They'll cost around $140 million to build. We've been asked and offered the opportunity by the Export-Import Bank in Washington to provide debt funding for around $95 million of debt for the first hub. We're well at work in terms of finding the hub location and also signing up feedstock for the hubs and offtake customers for the hubs. And we've recently announced that we are studying creating a second hub in Nevada and a third hub in South Carolina. So CoTec directly and indirectly owns just over 60% of each of these. If we'd had 3 hubs up and running, which is what we're working on, that should have a net present value of around $1.8 billion. And our 60% without dilution would be worth over $1 billion, which is, 10x our current market cap. So we're very excited about the potential for this business. We were asked by the government to put up our dream scenario to them, and we said ultimately we think we can build 6, 7 hubs. So that again would add a lot of value. So that's the first business, and we're very excited about that. The second one is a business in Quebec to recycle the iron ore tailings from an old mine. We own 100% of that. We've drilled it using our technologies. We think that ultimately it will have an NPV of between $100 and $150 million. It had a $60 million NPV just from drilling half of it. we think it will cost around $60 million. And this is something very exciting for the government of Quebec. They have a huge liability associated with this, which we need to reduce by reprocessing it. And what you see in front of you, which is this sort of like a dusty desert in the middle of a forest, by the time we're finished, we will have returned it to a pristine forest landscape, and we'll have produced some very valuable iron ore concentrate at 68%, which has considerable value. And as I said, we own 100% of this at the moment. And then our third asset at the moment is a huge old iron ore facility in Minnesota with around 2.6 billion tons of iron ore in the ground, 37% grade, 200 million tons that has been mined with tailings, concentrator, a pelletizer. We're going to be announcing in the next 4 weeks what this all means. But I personally think that the asset's worth around $1 billion. CoTec has 17% of it, and we're going to use it to make pellets in the US for the US. And then we're exploring actually ultimately making pig iron in the US for the US, which will be a great asset for all the people putting money into the US and building all the new facilities, the automotive facilities, amongst others, for which they'll need some really good and green steel. So those are the things that we've got on our plate at the moment. This table just gives you some more details on the individual assets, and all of that with the great eminent board of directors that we have, which includes a retired U.S. Navy Vice Admiral, the ex head of equities at AllianceBernstein, a managing director of Traxys, a big trader, the ex-investor for the Canadian pension plan in mining, and of course the ex-CEO of Rio Tinto, all of which signal, the scale of our ambitions. And then we also have a great management team behind them. But all of that has come together already to create considerable value. So this is actually an old NAV calculation. I think we're going to update that shortly. I think the value of our stake in Hypermag alone, as we're getting more information through, is probably an extra $200-300 million than what's shown here. But you can see that every time we do a new transaction, we add value to the shareholding. And we don't want to issue tons of shares. We want to build the value of the shares that we have. And so we'll continue to do new deals, and each deal will add, $50, $100, $200 million to the NAV of the company as a whole. The share price has started to reflect what we're doing, but still trades at a big discount. I think the market price today is more like $1.30 than $1.20. There's not a huge number of warrants outstanding. We have some cash, and I put up a convertible facility to continue to make sure that we are appropriately funded. And so the company is doing well. And more interesting for new investors is you can see that we raised capital in the last months, probably 2-3 months ago, and the liquidity is really ramping up very quickly for the stock. So that's a good thing. You can get in, you can get out, and clearly, if our discussions with the U.S. government, come to fruition, the whole company could be re-rated quite quickly overnight. So lots of catalysts still coming for the business. Towards the end of the year, we're going to announce the notice to proceed for the first hub in Texas. We're going to initiate the bankable feasibility study, etc. So lots of news, which we think will lead to the share price re-rating. And I hope you gather from the tone of my discussion that we're very excited about this. We're putting our money where our mouth is, and we are going to execute and create a lot of value. So with that, we'll turn over to questions. Eugene.
Yes, thank you, Julian. That was great. So we definitely have quite a few questions. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them, but I'll just start reading them off. Excuse me. We have one question about, I think you partially answered this, but they wanted an update on the timeline of the mag iron study. Is it still progressing to plan?
Yeah, the mag iron study is progressing. It's been progressing more slowly than we initially expected, but I am confident that towards the end of this month or early next month, we will announce that, and it will be a 43-101 and a feasibility study, and that will allow us then to start the discussions with potential investors in mag iron. And mag iron is also strategic to the U.S., both in terms of being a domestic source of pellets, but also I think it will become clearer over the next couple of years how strategic domestic sources of pig iron could be for the quality of U.S. steel.
That's great. We have another question here. They're asking what factors give CoTec's core technologies such as hypermag, binding solutions, and SABO a durable competitive advantage over the incumbent solutions in the market?
Well, I mean, we've always tried to invest in things which weren't just laboratory experiments. So they are commercially viable is number one. They work, which is the most important thing. And none of the technologies has really fallen over since we've made an investment in them. But we've also made sure that they are appropriately patent protected. So there is, a secret source which, should protect us from competition. It is true that the incumbent technologies historically, have a lot of inertia which benefits them. But we think over time, people will understand what these technologies can do. And in the meantime, it's a big opportunity for CoTec to hoover up assets which are only really valuable because of these technologies, which we uniquely have, the rights to.
And I think that's great. And I think similarly, there was a question specifically on the hypermag technology, but I mean, you kind of answered it already with what its key competitive advantage is compared to the other technologies in the market.
Well, I think that's worth spending a few seconds on. I mean, the hypermag technology can take a used magnet and make a new magnet in 4 steps. The existing other technologies, which are long loop technologies, require separation of the individual rare earth elements. And in some instances, we've noticed that up to 20 steps are involved. And when you have a step in the natural resources sector or doing anything, the opportunity for a cock-up really expands. So if you have 20 of steps rather than 4 steps, we are at a tremendous advantage. It's simpler, it's de-risked, and it's easier.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm just trying to scan through because we're running short on time here.
I know this is like, I feel like I'm on a TV program. I have to, buy. I have 1 minute to pick up all the groceries or something.
Yeah, so I think here I'm just trying to scan through. Some of them you've already answered. Julian, how do you feel about CoTec hypermag relative to previous opportunities in your career?
I think it's a big opportunity. I mean, I think it's an opportunity of a lifetime. I think the technology thing. I mean, we won't not have a challenge for forever, but I think we have a couple of years advantage. I think this focus on waste is just beginning to start. There are more than 10,000 closed mines in Canada alone. So there's lots to be done. So that's why I'm so excited, putting my time and money behind it, and it's working out so far. And I feel confident that we can do something really amazing here.
Okay, I think that's great. I think we'll have to close off here due to the time constraints, but I do encourage anybody who didn't get their questions answered, please, sign up to have the one-on-one meetings, and we can further answer your questions there. And Julian, I'll leave it off to you. Any closing remarks in the last few seconds here?
Okay, well, I think we're out of time, but it's a very interesting story. It's a timely story on so many fronts, and we're very focused on execution. And we have the track record of making money historically for ourselves and shareholders. So hopefully, you're dealing with people who are professional and experts, and we're going to make it happen. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.